Thank you for making Saint Central
your black and gold home for the New Orleans Saints.
Who that say they gonna beat them Saints? Who that? Who that? Who that say they gonna beat them Saints? Who that? Who that? Who that say they gonna beat them Saints? Who that? Who that?
Yeah. Boogie like Benson, I'm a who that. I'm a who that. Long as I'm living, I'm a who that. Lose or winning, I'm a who that. Sports Coma, yeah, this is where we do that. Where we do that, where we do that, where we do that, where we do that, where we do that. Boogie like Benson, I'm a who that. I'm a who that. Sports Coma, this is where we do that. Where we do that. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Somebody please better help. Running this thing like Elf. I thank God every day I'm not a felt. Go to YouTube Live with Big Q and the guys. If you ain't ride or die, the bandwagon get flipped. Been marching in, that was way for the ring. I was yelling out your shame for the championship. Bucking on town, duck down. Falcons pluck, get shut down. Panthers ain't much touchdown. The vision really belong to us now. So much hate on the Saints, you could probably tell. Ever since Bounty Gate hit the NFL, when things seem fishy and you probably smell the crooked referees or Roger Goodell. Yeah, fucking like this and I'm a who that. Every day I'm living, I'm a who that. Lose or winning, I'm a who that. It's the Sports Coma, this is where we do that. Where we do that, where we do that, where we do that, where we do that, where we do that. Boogie like this and I'm a who that. It's the Sports Coma, this is where we do that.
You're listening to the Sports Coma with Big Q and the guys on the PRO Media Network.
Welcome. You're now rocking with the Sports Coma with Big Q and the guys, where we have intense, entertaining, educating, and enlightening sport talk from your favorite sports fam. I'm up in this thing. Shout out to the Who Dat Nation, man. We representing to the great Saint Think Tank. We got one of New Orleans' finest and one of the great Saint Think Tank's honorary members, the great Bob Rose from the Saints News Network and the Bayou Blitz podcast. Once again, we thank Bob for always jumping in on the Coma, man, to sprinkle some game and shed some light on the Who Dat Nation. Welcome on, Bob. How you doing, my friend?
Oh, fam, I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me, my friend. I always an honor to come on with you. And hey, happy Thanksgiving to you, your family. Happy Thanksgiving to you viewers out there as well. I hope you had a great holiday and that it continues to be great right through Christmas.
Oh, yeah. Thank you, Bob. Same to you and your family as well, my friend. Appreciate that. And same blast out to the rest of the Who Dat Nation, man. Let's hope that the Saints, Bob, kind of give us a post-Thanksgiving gift by giving us a win over the 49ers. Now, we had a previewer that came on from the 49ers. He works for Sports Illustrated out on the West Coast covering the 49ers. And he sprinkled some game from his perspective on it. Grant, shout out Grant Cone, that was here from the Cone Zone. So shout out to him. But he sprinkled some game about some of the 49ers and how they feel about it, the 3-game winning streak. So I wanted to get your thoughts. I was like, let me get Bob in here, let Bob sprinkle some game. So Bob, right now, the team, obviously, to you, and I've been covering a lot of your posts and a lot of your pieces that you've been writing. We always cover it here on the Sports Coma. What are your thought? What are your thought on the Saints at 4-7 right now, heading to this matchup? We beat the Rams, but the Rams was one of the, they wasn't playing that well, Bob. And I don't want to sprinkle a little salt on the Saints win last week, but had Stafford not got knocked out of that game, I think the Rams would have beat the Saints because they didn't have an answer for him and they couldn't stop the run. So defense got busy, knocked them out of that. We got the win, but how fortunate are we going into this 49ers matchup based on all of that?
Hey, Q, I tell you, and I'm with you. I'm not going to feed into the hyperbole of that win. A win against a poorly playing Rams team is going to turn their year around. You never know, but let's not pretend that this is the same Los Angeles team that won the Super Bowl last year. Right. What I am impressed with from the Saints' victory is the way the next men up really stepped up their performances. The Saints were playing with 3 backup offensive linemen, Cam Jordan, Marcus Davenport, Pete Werner, Marshawn Lattimore, all out on the defensive side. Those are 4 legitimate Pro Bowl players. So you have to give credit. The Saints offensive line opened up just enough running room and gave Andy Dalton just enough pass protection for them to win. The biggest concern, this Rams team had the worst rushing offense in the NFL coming in, and the Saints still couldn't stop it. And I don't put that to the fault, purely to the fault of the injuries to Warner, Cam, and Davenport, because this team hasn't been able to stop the run all year. Going into a game against a very, very balanced San Francisco offense, people, if you haven't followed the 49ers, you're missing a fun team to watch, and a potential juggernaut in the NFC, because this 49ers offense, everybody knows about the 49ers defense. That's what the national media talks about. But this San Francisco offense is really very, very good. They have 4 true legitimate playmakers, and although the Saints might be getting some of those defensive contributors back, and I know we'll talk about that in a minute, that defensive unit for New Orleans is going to have their hands full. And frankly, New Orleans just does not have the horses offensively to get into a high-scoring game. They're still a little bit beaten up on the offensive line. Alvin Kamara, Chris Olave, they're as good as anybody. Juwan Johnson's having one heck of a year. But outside of that, who on offense really, outside of maybe Taysom Hill, who on offense for the Saints really scares opposing defenses? The answer, nobody. So, the Saints have to be able to play San Francisco with a very balanced attack, avoid the turnovers and penalties on offense, and force turnovers and penalties on defense. This is going to be a real uphill battle. This San Francisco team, I think, is playing like a legitimate Super Bowl contender right now.
Oh, they definitely are. I was looking at the film on them, Bob, to be quite honest with you, man, and you're absolutely right. This team, the last 3 games, they play really good, especially the Monday night matchup when they smacked the hell out of Arizona in the game. So you're right. If the Saints are able to pull this off, and let me just say this about Dennis Allen. I'm not a Dennis Allen guy. At first, when Dennis Allen first came in here, I give a guy a chance. Like, let's see what he can do. He's been under Coach Payton for 10 years. You got to learn something. Then as the season goes, the team woefully underperforms. Most of the games, they're sleepwalking through, half-ass performances here or there. And then when it gets toward the back end, we're sitting up here at 4-7, we're able to beat the Rams. But you're right, cautiously optimistic about the win over the Rams. But to me, this could be probably the toughest game, and definitely as of the season, the biggest matchup. Little sense of desperation, a lot of sense actually, in the last win. Could they transpose? That's another thing I want to ask you about, Bob. Can they transpose the positive from the prior win over to the 49ers matchup, which I have not been able to see them do that over the season? After every win, it's an automatic loss for the Saints during this season. So that shows me that they have an inability to be able to take the positive from the prior winning matchup and bring it over to the second matchup behind the win. What is your thought on that? Why aren't we able to do that in your perspective?
Q, you're absolutely right. I mean, this team has not put together back-to-back wins all year. And not only that, if you look at their performance after every win, and this is exactly what you just said, outside of, after they beat Seattle, they really should have beaten the Cincinnati Bengals the following week. But outside of that, they have had absolute stinkers every time they have won a game. I mean, it's one thing to win a game and then lose a hard-fought game, game the following week. That hasn't been the case. The Saints have just sleepwalked through their following opponents, and really opponents that they vastly overmatch on paper, and that. A lot of people blame the coaches, specifically Dennis Allen, and I get it. He deserves, and that staff deserves their fair share of blame. But I don't think enough blame is being passed around to the leadership, the player leadership. The Demario Davises, the Cam Jordans, Marshawn Lattimores, etc. There's only so much that the coaches can do. The players on the field are the ones that have to execute. that have to get motivated, self-motivated. I mean, these are perfect. Yeah, it'd be different if you were talking about high school players, even some college players. Motivation from the coaches is definitely a factor then. These are guys that are getting paid to do this for a living, that are professionals in every sense of the word. If you need a coach to motivate you week in and week out, you probably should get on with your life's work. And although the veteran leadership on that team, most of them, Davis, Cam, etc., most of them have had very good individual seasons. I have outwardly questioned the leadership in the huddle and in that locker room time and time again this year. And that every bit as much as blame to the coaching staff. Those are the kind of things responsible for the Saints not being able to put together a win streak, not being able to play consistent on really either side of the ball at all this season.
Indeed, Bob. Well said, man. I agree wholeheartedly. Let's take a look at the injury report for this week, my friend, for this Friday, actually. And we go over things and you look at it. Davenport was limited. You had a questionable status. JT Graf, special team ace, is out. James Hurst will play, look like fully practiced, so he's good. Cam questionable with his eye. Marshawn Lattimore limited in practice. Hadn't seen him in a while. He's questionable. Hopefully these questionable guys do play. We see Ryan Ramczyk with a knee. He fully practiced. Mark Ingram's, we've seen him out for a while. He's questionable. Peyton Turner's out. So is Pete Werner. So two of our young guys are out right there. And Jarvis Landry's limited. Kamara fully practiced after being out with an illness. The 49ers, not much they're talking about. Armstead, the big defensive tackle, was doubtful for the matchup. Trent Williams, he will play. So is their defensive end. Ebukam or whatever his name is, fully practiced. Debo Samuel was limited, Bob, but he's questionable. So we have a few guys, man, that are a lot of the guys, Bob, that were out with the Saints, man, that we really need for this final push. If they're going to do something, we get most of these guys back. They have questionable status there. So hopefully questionable means that they can play. I know back in the day, questionable was you're not playing. Questionable was like doubtful. And probable was the designation that if you're probable, you mean you're going to play. So I guess today's questionable is yesterday's probable. I'm hoping. So it's some kind of way. But what are your quick thoughts on what do you think? Do some of these guys play that with this questionable status? What do you think?
It's actually very encouraging to see a lot of these guys returning to practice on a limited basis. If you followed the Saints for a while, you probably knew that if Cam, there was no way in hell Cam was going to miss back-to-back games. Davenport getting him back, and I think he will be in the lineup on Sunday. Getting Davenport back is huge. Andrus Pete and that triceps injury, especially for a lineman, that could be a very tricky injury. You definitely don't want him to re-aggravate that, but at the same time, you don't want to force him into the lineup. Or him force himself into the lineup when he's basically a one-arm blocker, because that's going to get Andy Dalton killed. As far as Kamara, he missed all of yesterday's practice and was really only present for the first portion, early portion of today's session. But Dennis Allen said after the game that, and I quote, it shouldn't be an issue when he was asked if Kamara is going to be available to play on Sunday. Lattimore, Ingram, I know they're listed as questionable, which officially means there'll be a game time decision. I don't expect either of these guys to be back in the lineup yet, but I still take it as an encouraging sign that this is the first time Lattimore has practiced in over 6 weeks, first time Ingram has practiced in a month. So they're definitely trending in the right direction. If the Saints can pull together a one more win that still keeps them in the NFC South race, just as you're getting Lattimore, Ingram, the rest of these guys healthy, that could be a dangerous equation for the rest of the NFL. Right. But as far as the guys listed as questionable this week, I would expect Cam, probably Davenport, and Kamara to play. Pete is literally a 50-50. We'll have to watch the inactive report for that one, because they've now proven that they have a little bit of depth on that offensive line. All the more reason not to rush Pete back in and then lose him for the rest of the year. And like I said, Lattimore and Ingram, I know what it officially lists them as. I would be surprised to see them in the lineup on Sunday, especially Lattimore. You don't want to play around with that injury too much because that's a life or death thing. So I would expect Lattimore and probably Ingram to not play on Sunday. But again, encouraging that they're trending in the right direction. Indeed.
You're right. Man, Lattimore, man, a lacerated kidney and I think 2 broken ribs. I mean, my goodness, man, that's rough. And these are tough guys that come back from injury. So a lot of people out there, man, many people wouldn't be able to do their jobs, their regular jobs. They would be disabled with those type of injuries. We just are oblivious to that, Bob, how hard some of these injuries are, like Jameis with the 4 broken vertebrae in his back. You would be disabled. You couldn't do nothing with that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's crazy. But quick thoughts, Bob. You have any information you can share with us about Trevor Penning? What's the status of Trevor Penning? You think he gets in anytime soon? Is he activated for this matchup, or is just that something that we'll see in the foreseeing weeks? What do you think?
I do expect Penning to be activated very soon. I said a couple weeks ago, when he entered that window where he could be activated from injured reserve, a lot of people were immediately excited. Oh, he's going to be inserted immediately into the lineup, and I said, no, because again, this is an injury that you don't want to play with. It's an injury that if aggravated wrongly, then it could really affect a player's career. And James Hurst is a solid football player, so it's not like you're getting a bum in there at left tackle. It wouldn't shock me if Penning was activated for this game. We're actually hearing, I believe Nick Underhill reported earlier today, from New Orleans.football, that that there's a strong chance that Penning will be activated tomorrow afternoon, and be able to suit up for the 49ers game. If he isn't, then I would almost certainly believe that the following week against Tampa Bay, would definitely be Trevor Penning's debut. And hey, who knows? With the way Pete has been injured and banged up, in my opinion, the best fit for James Hurst has always been at guard. So if Pete continues to be banged up and Calvin Throckmorton has had a real inconsistent season in replacing him,
oh my goodness,
we could see this team kick James Hurst inside to left guard and immediately plug that first-round draft choice Penning into left tackle. Hey, see what the kid could do, especially if you're clinging onto your playoff lives. Bob, you're right, man. I think really I love Hurst at guard. I mean, inside, I love him at guard. I'm gonna give you to you. At the end, I'm a little nervous about the left tackle position, but inside, love him there. And Trevor Penning could actually probably bring the type of nastiness that I think our offensive line need. We need that nasty mentality that Penning brings. So maybe he can be a tone setter emotionally for the Who Dat Nation, especially maybe our offensive line, because we're going to need to push on. But let's move on, Bob. Let's take a look at this, man, because I know you were looking at some of the 49ers situation. You look at what we're doing. We average 22.6. We're giving up 24.3, which would explain why we're a sub 500 team. 23.6 is their average, and they give up 17.3. I think that's good for either third in it. If I look at my statistics, ranking wise, I don't know. I think that's second or third, perhaps, in the NFL of what they're giving up. Total yards, 372.5. That's right around what the Saints are doing. So we're averaging offensively around the same amount of yardage total. Passing 253, almost 254, might as well say, versus their 245.3. Saints rush at it almost 118 yards per contest. The 49ers, Bob, 127.2 yards per rush. Their rushing offense this year. Saints giving up 345 per game total, 214.6 through the air, and 132.1 yards on the ground. That is awful. It's terrible. And then 305 is with the Niners defense. They give you 224.3 through the air, but they say 81.1. You ain't getting nothing on the ground, says the 49ers run stuff in defense. So, Bob, how we beat this team? I'll tell you, this is, like I said, these 49ers are playing like a juggernaut right now. To delve a little bit deeper into your statistics, they have not given up a running. No running back has rushed for over 60 yards against them in 18 games. We're not talking 100-yard rush. We're talking no running back over 60 yards. Only some guy named Patrick Mahomes threw for 400 yards against them earlier this year. Outside of that, the other 9 quarterbacks that they've faced, none of them have thrown for over 255.
Wow.
Those are mind-boggling numbers.
That is.
Yet, I actually feel pretty good if the Saints win their battles up front. I actually feel good about the Saints offense matched up against San Francisco's defense. Frisco is a little bit thin inside along their defensive line, assuming Eric Armstead doesn't play, because they're already without two other defensive tackles that are on injured reserve. It's not like the Saints get a lot of rushing yards inside, but Taysom Hill, Alvin Kamara, they're cut back. They're slashing runners. So they'll start off tackle, but if that Saints offensive line can open up a couple holes inside, a couple cutback lanes, or if Mark Ingram is active, that might be a factor too. I think the Saints are physically able to establish some balance in a running game. It might not be pretty, similar to last week against the Rams when they only ran for 88 yards, but they were a quality 88 yards. They were enough to keep the chains moving, enough to keep control of the football. If the Saints can manage that again, that'll slow that 49ers pass rush led by all-pro Nick Bosa. And I actually like the matchup that Chris Olave and Juwan Johnson have against the 49ers secondary. San Francisco has a very physical secondary and 3 tremendous linebackers. Those linebackers might keep Kamara in check as a receiver, but New Orleans has to get Alvin involved as a pass receiver early in the game. It might not be for a lot of yards, but he's got to keep those 49ers linebackers active and with their attention on him. If they can do that, then I like Olave and Juwan Johnson's matchup against the San Francisco secondary that sits back a lot. They'll give up receptions in front of them and then look to make big hits, or if their pass rush can force an inaccurate throw from the quarterback, which oftentimes is the case, then they'll capitalize on that. So, if Dalton gets a little bit of protection, we know that he can be an accurate passer. And, we know that he's not going to get impatient and force the ball down the field. And that's why I see potential good outings for Chris Olave and Juwan Johnson this week.
Yeah. You know what, Bob, Grant thought the same. Grant Cohn thought the same thing from the Cohn Zone. He was saying that the Saints, and one of the family members that's listening called him a 49er hater. He covers the team. So he doesn't have I guess you say a biased view for the club because he covers them. He covers them like a guy looking out from the outside, and he covers them. So I guess that kind of rubs guys a different way. Thank you, Hoodie, for that. He says Armstead is out this game. Saw it earlier on Twitter. So there you go. Armstead is out. Thank you. Shout out to you, Hoodie. But this is also very like one of the statement games, Bobby. You look at the offense for what the 49ers do, and Garoppolo is having a pretty good year. You know what I'm saying? He's doing pretty good in the matchup. They got McCaffrey there. And even though McCaffrey hadn't seemed to be doing anything, he warned us about Elijah Mitchell, the running back behind him is a guy that you have to watch out for. He's in between runner in between the tackles. And they have a real splendid staff of wide receivers, Brandon Ayuk and Deebo Samuel. Don't forget Kittle, even though, he's in the matchup. So, man, it's a mix, but he sees the 49ers strength as the identity of the team is defensive first, offensive second. So, I mean, if we're attacking the 49ers defense, stretch plays, he was talking about misdirection plays that tend to go right at Nick Bosa and attack Nick Bosa directly and force him to make decisions. According to his research, he said Bosa tends to over pursue, and he has an issue right there that he thinks that the Saints can capitalize off. But I definitely agree with you about the linebackers. They're absolutely splendid, and they go sideline to sideline. So I don't know about stretch plays and all this kind of stuff against them. We might have to put the hard hat on and go right on at them. What do you thought about all that, Bob? I know that's a lot, but what do you think about some of that stuff?
It is a lot, and you and I just broke down a lot of what Grant said about the 49. And I follow Grant. I like his work. A lot of times I get yelled at for the same thing that he does, trying to take a non-biased approach. Right. This San Francisco offense is going to be tough, though. Deebo Samuel, his status, he popped up with that hamstring report on the injury report earlier this week, like you pointed out early in the show. But Deebo is probably the most versatile wide receiver in the National Football League. People don't understand. Yeah, they'll see his statistics and say, oh, yeah, they run him. They use him a lot on end arounds. No, that's not the case. Debo will run out of the backfield as good as any off tackle running back you will find, and they'll use him. McCaffrey, Elijah Mitchell, Christian McCaffrey walked into a beautiful situation for him. He no longer has to shoulder the offense like he did in Carolina. San Francisco is getting him involved, but it's more as a pass catcher. He's averaged 7 receptions per game in his 3 games with the 49ers, but him and Elijah Mitchell are pretty much splitting the carries evenly. So if they do that and they can hit you with Deebo Samuel, I mean, that's a 3-headed running back monster that not many teams can boast. And I don't have to tell you how good Deebo is. You mentioned how good George Kittle is. Brandon Ayuk actually has more receptions and receiving yards than either Debo or George Kittle. So don't sleep on Brandon Ayuk either. Those are 3 very physical receivers. And Saints fans, I don't have to tell you how good a receiver Christian McCaffrey is. So that's your 4-headed beast that Garoppolo can find when he gets some time in the pass pocket. The thing about San Francisco is, again, this is a team that does not force the ball down the field. They would rather get the ball out of Garoppolo's hands very quickly. It's football 101. Get the ball in the hands of your best playmakers as quickly as possible. And that is exactly what Jimmy Garoppolo does. San Francisco's strategy is, we have quick guys, we have physical guys. We're going to make you tackle us. Well, that's something that the Saints have been very, 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 very poor at this year. And Saints fans, close your eyes and remember that 49er game versus the Saints back in 2019, when George Kittle literally carried the entire Saints secondary into field goal position for that game-winning kick. That was a good defense. This one's not so good for New Orleans. People like Tyrann Mathieu, Marcus May, who have had awful seasons, they're really going to have to step to the plate. Otherwise, it's going to be a long day for this New Orleans defense.
Amen, Bob. Absolutely. Tyrann Mathieu, I was looking at some film and I see some things. I'm like, what is he looking at? He's looking at something and it's like he doesn't react. The touchdown play when the guy went into motion, Bob, from the left side of the line, he moved from motion from the left to the right into the slot position, right in front of Tyrann Mathieu, who was positioned in the end zone. This is inside the red zone, inside of the 5-yard line, I want to say. The play is snapped, the guy goes up, turns around, catches the ball, then Tyrann engages. I'm like, what's going on? I'm pretty sure that guy didn't draw that up that way. So I'm like, what do you I just don't get it. And I'm like, we're deep in the season. A lot of these guys need to really figure it out here and turn this thing around before it's too late. Some people believe it's too late. A loss to the 49ers will definitely more than likely probably kick us in the teeth. So thank you, Brother Thomas, for your super chat. He says Penning is activated for this week. Bob reported on that. He said that already. Thank you for that, bro. Appreciate you.
Thomas, to be fair, not to interrupt you, Q, to be fair, Thomas, it hasn't officially been announced yet. It will be official tomorrow. But like Q and I, kind of hinted at a minute ago, we expected the news about Trevor Penning. We have been hearing things like that. But like I said, it's not official yet, but it should become official tomorrow.
Okay. Well, that's good news to help us up on the offensive line. A lot of our guys, we're getting most of them back for this important game. So, Bob, I'm going to get ready to cut you loose, my friend. I know you got a busy day, and I kind of ran late into your time.
The Black Friday traffic, my friend. You couldn't help it.
Man, I was all over, man. I had to go take my boys to see my mother and, all this kind of stuff. And, so it was good. But yeah, the issue, let's talk about the score prediction. I know you kind of get away from the score prediction, but how do you see the game playing out? Do you think the Saints get the win? Me personally, I think the Saints win the contest because I have no reason but to have to take that, because if and really it's not I'm not putting anything behind Dennis Allen, because I really don't want Dennis Allen here. I think he doesn't have what he needs to coach this team. But I think if this is going to be done, it has to be done, like you said so yourself, with leadership from the players. They're going to have to galvanize and they're going to have to push this forward. So how do you see the game playing out in terms of a winning score and your keys?
Boy, I'll tell you, I hate the San Francisco 49ers. Like I hate them. More so than what Saints fans hate. I hate the Atlanta Falcons. I'm an older guy, so I remember those old NFC West days where Joe Montana, Bill Walsh, Jerry Rice, etc. They just tortured the Saints, year
Yep.
in and year out.
Yep.
And when I close my eyes and think of the red and gold, SF, overcrossed SF symbol, that those are the kind of teams I think about. This is going to be a tough game for the Saints to win, but I think New Orleans is putting together something potentially special down the stretch.
Okay.
But having said that, I think San Francisco is playing too good right now. Do I think New Orleans can go in there and win? Absolutely, I do. And I think it's going to be a very hard-fought game. But the 49ers have been a nemesis for the New Orleans Saints, their fans and their franchise for decades, for over 30 years. So I can see, I think San Francisco, sadly, I'm going to say I think San Francisco is going to take this in a close one, probably in the realm of, like, I would say 27-23. But again, I would not be at all surprised if the Saints flip that score and come out of here with a close win. I just think this 49ers are playing that good right now, and they have a chance to put one of the final nails in the Saints' coffin for 2022. And I'm afraid that they'll do just that. The Saints are going to play well. And wouldn't shock me for a win, but I'm going to go with San Francisco in a close one.
Yeah, that's a lot of the family members feel like you, Bob. So you're not alone. You got a lot of good company with you. It's just as a who that, man, you gotta, I'm kind of holding out hope for our players who are experienced guys that are winners, that know what it takes. I'm just saying, what are you guys waiting for? Take control of the wheel and steer this thing. Dennis Allen lacks a lot. This guy. I'm looking at him and I'm reading him from afar. Them guys see him up close. They know what they're dealing with here.
Yeah.
So you're gonna have to wrestle the wheel, so to speak, and do what you can do from your side. Not the penalties, not the fumbles. You got to catch what you got to catch. The ball thrown to you, execute. All this confusion and guys not knowing which guy they're blocking, and false starting in your own building, guessing at the snap, misreading on plays, slow in coverage on the back end with the safeties. I mean, this has to stop here. We have to get really crisp in our planning and get thorough here and make it work. Thank you, Hoodie, for that, man. He says, Q, tell Bob I know 49ers offense looks scary, but Olave, Kamara, Jarvis, Jawan, Taysom are going to be a problem against a banged-up 49ers secondary and banged-up defensive line. And also, thank you, Hoodie. Appreciate you, buddy, for that. And also, Bob, another thing Grant was saying, too, about the 49ers is that he thinking that they could have a letdown against the Saints because they are overlooking the Saints at the Dolphins that are matchup behind us because McDaniels, the coach, who has 49ers ties. So that's his thought process on it as well.
Yeah, I could totally see that happening. And it's hard to overlook anybody in today's NFL, but we know it happens. And Hoodie, I agree with you, and I mentioned that. That Olave, Jawan especially could have big games. They're going to need big games from Kamara and Taysom. And even if the Saints lose, 27-24, 30-27, that tells you that the Saints put up a good offensive game, which I expected. But and Nick Bosa and those 49er linebackers, they're awful good too. It's going to be a matchup of stars. Whose stars play better, especially on defense? Is it those guys for the 49ers? Is it Cam? Caden Ellis, who has been playing on fire lately, Demario Davis, maybe Tyrann Mathieu shows up and makes a couple of plays. It's whichever team makes more defensive plays that are going to pull this one out.
Okay, there it is. The man is spoken. Once again, I like to thank Bob. Shout out to my man Bob for being up in the building. Bob, please tell the family members where they can find you and all the really great work you do at the Saints News Network.
Well, thank you, my family member. You know I love you. You know I love coming on with you.
Same here, bro.
Folks, you can follow me on Facebook. Just look for Bob Rose. I'm over on Twitter at BobbyR2613. All of my work I post on my personal pages, but I can be found directly on the Saints News Network as well, at Saints News on Twitter. And we do all the coverage for the New Orleans Saints on the SI.com site. And please, Q referenced it a couple of times. Check out our show, our podcast on every Wednesday evening at 8 p.m. Central Time. It's called the Bayou Blitz. We've had a couple former Saints players on, a couple analysts, national analysts. Even when it's just Brendan Boylan, my co-host, and myself, we try to have fun. We try to put on an entertaining product. I have a lot of competition. Shows like yourself, Q, but I'm trying to match up with you big boys. But please check out the Bayou Blitz podcast. If you don't check us out live on Wednesday night, just YouTube it, and you can look at all of our past shows as well.
A lot of great content over there at Bob Rose Bayou Blitz, him and Brother Kyle T. Mosley and the rest of the family members. They do a lot of good work, man. They are my favorite. And when you talk about Saints content and telling it like it is, those guys are my favorite. There are a lot of good ones out there, but Saints News Network is my favorite. That's why I always have Bob on the show, and I always shout out Kyle and the rest of the family members at the Saints News Network. So all the Who Dat Nation, go over there and hit the subscribe button and join them. We all family. We all sharing the love of the squad, and that's how I see it. So Bob, once again, my friend, happy holidays to you, my man. I appreciate you being patient with me, man, with all of the running I was doing earlier, all the kind of ways. But thank you, my friend, once again. And a happy holiday season to you and your family. Please be safe. And anytime you feel like popping in back in December, I pretty much some of these games kind of span out. We'll have a real definitive view of what we're looking at with this Saints down the line. So I'm gonna reach out to you in December sometime, bring you back for your perspective, my friend.
You got it, man. And happy holidays to you and your family. Brennan and I are going to have you on the Bayou Blitz for sure. You know how crazy holiday schedules can get, but we're going to get together. We're going to collaborate on our shows. Hey, we've been a family for a long time. Throw Kyle Mosley in that mix. We're going to expand it and give you guys some double dose of Q and Bob Rose.
There you go. That sounds good, Bob. Listen, I thank all y'all guys for being on the stream, man. Listen, we're going to holler at you later, but listen, fam, before our Pelican post-game report, family will be doing the Pelican post-game report tonight. So if you want to subscribe for the Pelican content, go to Pelican post-game report on YouTube or go to the whodatdaily.com, our headquarters site for all of our content from boxing, college football, boxing, pro football, all the stuff. All that crap, all that stuff. All the content is over there, man. There's a lot of stuff going on. All right, so with that being said, hit the like button, family. Also, feel free. I think the link is, and they might have put it in the description section below for the Pro Shop. They got 20 to 60% off on goods right now. So if y'all looking to help out the stream via the Pro Shops, please feel free to check it out. The link is in the description section below for that, or go to the community section of the page to get that. So with that being said, fam, I'm going to get out on that. And I'm going to holler at y'all on the flip side, man. Who that to you? Much love. And I'm out.
Yeah. Boogie like Benson, I'm a who that. I'm a who that. Long as I'm living, I'm a who that. Lose or winning, I'm a who that. Sports Coma, yeah, this is where we do that. Where we do that, where we do that, where we do that, where we do that, where we do that. Boogie like Benson, I'm a who that. I'm a who that. Sports Coma, this is where we do that. Where we do that. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Somebody please better help. Running this thing like Elf. I thank God every day I'm not a felt. Go to YouTube Live with Big Q and the guys. If you ain't ride or die, the bandwagon get flipped. Been marching in, that was way for the ring. I was yelling out your chain for the championship. Fucking on town, duck down. Falcons, pluck, get shut down. Panthers ain't much touchdown. The vision really belong to us now. So much hate on the Saints, you could probably tell. Ever since Bounty Gate hit the NFL, when things seem fishy and you probably smell the crooked referees or Roger Goodell. Yeah, fucking like this and I'm a who that. Every day I'm living, I'm a who that. Lose or winning, I'm a who that. It's the Sports Coma, this is where we do that. Where we do that, where we do that, where we do that, where we do that, where we do that. Boogie like Benson, I'm a who that. It's the Sports Coma, this is where we do that.
You're listening to the Sports Coma with Big Q and the guys on the PRO Media Network.
Pro Shop. That's right, the Pro Shop is the platform store where you can go and buy all the latest merch to support the platform. Available at the Pro Shops, we have dozens of hundreds of products available for you and your family. Unisex tees for men and women, hoodies and sweatshirts, tank tops, kids and baby items, long sleeve tees, mugs, pillows, wall art, bath bedding, face masks, phone cases, stickers, bags, fanny packs, socks, hats, and many other items. Please feel free to check out the Pro Shops. The link is in the description section below. And remember, it helps the platform continue to grow. Check out the Pro Shop and Who That too. The WhoThatDaily.com. That's right, the WhoThatDaily.com. Your one-stop shop for everything New Orleans Saints, New Orleans Pelicans, LSU Tigers, even the top flight boxing news. So if you're a Who That and you're looking for a place to stay up on your team, WhoThatDaily.com is your site. The WhoThatDaily.com for the sport